Hey everybody, happy Wednesday, and I'll just do the Patreon thing before we get into it because I don't have a segue. So help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Lanika. Toss a coin to my patron, and in Witcher fashion. If you are interested in my opinions on The Witcher and my discussion with Dirk from Super Arrogant Bros on Rise of Skywalker, there's going to be a very lengthy, it's like a 2-hour video posted. Oh, hi, Momo. Posted when it gets up. I'm going to double up on content today because Dirk and I are doing it on our different channels. So if you like what you see, give him a like, check out his podcast. It's very, very interesting stuff. Very different from what I do, but really interesting stuff. And since we talked about Star Wars and we had a really good discussion about it, I started wondering, why can't more conversations happen this way? Why do people like to fight about Star Wars? And then I discovered this gem. One of my absolute favorite Twitter feeds ever is Mark Hamill's. In part because I have always been a Luke girl, not a Han girl. He puts up here, you could see, only put off until tomorrow what you are willing to die having left undone. Pablo Picasso. And here's an old man at his deathbed saying, I wish I'd spent more time arguing about Star Wars online. And it's speaking truth, right? Like, we all realize that what somebody thinks about Star Wars doesn't really matter much. And yet people go fucking bananas about Star Wars. And I am not one of these people who believe that, everyone who does something is just stupid or a bigot. That's not, it doesn't make any sense. Maybe it's because I talk to a lot of people who have interests different than me. I'm a woman who really likes video games. That kind of comes with the territory. Every fucking baby shower or girls' night. Oh, do I loathe girls' nights. So, yeah, I'm used to having discussions with people with interests and points of view different from my own. But the Star Wars thing, I moved over for Momo because he's cute. There he is in the corner. There you go, Momo. People find my ET terrifying, but I love my ET, so it's not changing. I may move it from there, but I love my ET, so it's good that I used to shoot with the Yoda in the background, and people had less problems, and it's weird because they're both aliens that kind of look like testicles, but people were less bothered by Yoda, so maybe I will swap them out. I don't know, but Star Wars, I think, and it's been explained to me this way because it was interesting. Before the holidays, I posted my ideas on Rise of Skywalker, and I was just having fun going back and forth with people online, and people started accusing me of being upset or angry or whatever, and people started saying I got ratioed and all that stuff, and I was like, what? Why would I get angry about Star Wars? I was goofing around. If I start feeling legitimately angry about something, I get off Twitter. That's the worst idea in the world, to argue about something you are actually really invested in on Twitter, because Twitter is not a slice of life opinion on anything. It's not a scientific sample size. So I think Twitter ratioing is stupid. I completely lost respect for Chris Hayes on MSNBC when he started talking about the Twitter ratio as a legitimate measure of anything, because that's a critical thinking flaw, right? Just because an idea is popular doesn't mean it's right. And just because an idea is unpopular doesn't mean it's wrong. That just goes without saying. An idea has to start off as not a popular one, and then more and more people come around to the idea, and then it becomes popular. But, I mean, all the big civil rights ideas of human history started off as extremely unpopular ideas. So what's the deal with Star Wars? Why would people assume I was getting angry about it? Why do people feel so intensely intense about Star Wars? And I think it's a convergence of factors. Star Wars has been around long enough. I mean, 9 movies, 9 Skywalker movies, and 2 spin-offs, plus a couple of cartoon series and that god-awful Life Day special. Everybody has a childhood memory of Star Wars. It is one of those properties that has stayed generational, that everybody had a cultural phenomenon when they were children or teenagers connected to Star Wars. And so people feel sort of a childhood nostalgia connection to it. Now, one of the things about childhood nostalgia is that anything that comes out as an adult that is aimed at you when you were a kid, you're very rarely, I shouldn't say never. The My Little Pony, the modern My Little Pony cartoon is an example of when it does happen. I still love that cartoon. I actually think the modern one's better than the one I grew up with as a kid, except for that Sea Ponies theme song, Fight Me. But it's never going to hit you in the feels the way stuff did as a kid. It's just not. And you can't expect to get that back. But a lot of people do. A lot of people want to feel the same way they did when they sat down and watched it for the first time. And I mean, I admit I did get some of that just seeing those actors on screen again. I mean, I'm old enough now that whenever I see somebody over 40 on the screen, I just get fucking tickled. But, you know, I don't expect it to be the same oh wow as it hit me when I was a kid, but some people do. Some people, I guess when you feel small, anything that makes you feel connected to something larger is very, very important to you. But also, I think the other thing that people have told me is that they don't feel like they can control big geopolitical events. And so what they choose to care about is something like Star Wars. And okay, I kind of get that. But only so far. There's got to be something more going on here. Something that is just beyond logic. Something very knee-jerk of don't go there because otherwise, who cares? And I'm not quite sure what it is. I am not willing to dismiss, because one of the things that came up with the discussion with Dirk from Super Arrogant Bros is the hate that Kelly Marie Tran got. Because she didn't write the movie. She didn't create that character. She just got hired to play that character. So why dump on hate on the actress if you don't like the character? Focus it on the people who actually wrote the character. I don't understand that. Dirk didn't understand that. He was the one that brought it up. And it's almost like there's a certain portion of the population where these things... I first encountered this idea in Harry Potter fandom. And Harry Potter fandom, I will say, is one of the coolest fandoms I have ever been... I've ever intersected with. I wasn't a huge Harry Potter fan going in. Harry Potter fandom, with the, uproar about J.K. Rowling and all, made me more interested in getting involved in Harry Potter fandom just because they were such nice, interesting people. And, that kind of got sort of wrecked with J.K. Rowling having problematic opinions, shall we say. But they had this slogan, "It's real to us." And I think that "it's real to us" thing is a thing the more unreal something gets. So the minute you have sort of a supernatural or like space magic element to a property, you will get that "it's real to us" component in your fan base. And that's when you start getting these very passionate opinions about things. And it really is coming from, that inner 6, 8, 10, 12-year-old inside people. That kid that comes out when people are traumatized by something. And people don't respond to this stuff as full-fledged adults. People respond to it at the age they were at when they discovered Star Wars. And now that they go into it as an adult that thinks critically about things and who questions like plot holes and stuff like that, they start, their inner 12-year-old starts getting threatened. And I think that's the reaction. They just find something to seize on and blame it on and just lash out because their inner child's being threatened. Because it's being less real to them. Now they're thinking about it. Now that reality is being questioned, and it's like an existential crisis. And I was really surprised at how many defenders there are out there of episodes 1, 2, and 3. They went bonkers on me not being able to take a joke at all about, I made a joke about how they question all of Rey's abilities, but, can't handle, who thought it was a good idea to let a 6-year-old drive. It was clearly a joke to me. People treated it like it was a legitimate question, and they went through and, Watto, he was a slave, and he trained him to race cars, and, I mean, it's a ridiculous idea. A kid, even with hydraulic controls, will not have the strength to pull those levers at high speeds. If you've ever tried to operate something going really, really fast, you do need a certain amount of strength to pull that stuff that the 6-year-old just doesn't have. They completely missed the point. And I realized after the fact, I violated the "it's real to us" principle. When they saw that movie, when they were 6 years old, they did not question at all 6-year-old little Anakin driving a pod racer. Like, they just didn't question it. And so, violating that, it was almost like they are so close to it. That was such an important part of their childhood that they have no sense of humor about it. Me, I am more than capable of making jokes about pretty much everything I like. That's me. Now, I don't want them to be insensitive jokes. I am a laughing with, not laughing at kind of person, because something that hurts somebody, I don't find funny. And that was the error in judgment I made. I thought these guys were getting annoyed, and that's it. And then I wondered, what if they're actually getting hurt? And this is the thing I think all these internet fights are missing. As ridiculous as we may think it is for someone to get mortally emotionally wounded over Star Wars, this is clearly happening. Like, why do people care so much if Rey is one thing or the other? Well, something about that mortally wounds the person who cares very much about that. And I wish there was a forum where I could talk to strangers about this stuff without 20 people interrupting, one way or the other, where I could actually unpack, why do you care about this so much? And unfortunately, the internet has gotten so toxic that people don't think I'm serious when I say, who cares? Why do you care this much? Why is this so important to you? I really want to this is me. I want to understand. And I know this probably makes me unusual. I really want to understand why people get so upset about this stuff. Because the more I delve into the dark corners of the internet, which I kind of enjoy, I don't know why. Maybe it's spending my teenage years as a goth who listened to dancehall reggae. Who does that? Nobody. Exactly. That's like a product of the tiny little subculture that I was a part of. I am good with weird, right? I want to know if somebody can actually explain it, why this matters so much. And I think the problem, because this is on such a primal level, people can't explain it. And people are hesitant to explain it because they don't want to get labeled like an incel or a misogynist or something like that. And it's... One thing I've learned is that a lot of people, they don't have hatred towards anyone. They do internalize certain logic faults that make them appear to share characteristics with people who do have hatred. If that made any sense. I know that was very roundabout. I'm going to touch more on this on Feedback Friday, on the idea of dog whistles, and why they are sort of wrecking everything. And I'm really curious if you feel comfortable and if you think you can explain why this stuff bothers you so much. If, long-time viewers, if somebody posts a comment and it seems kind of inflammatory on this one, please don't challenge them. I want this to be, ironically, a safe space for people to elaborate on who cares if some plot point in Star Wars doesn't make sense. Who cares if you think a character is overpowered? Why does it matter? Why does it matter if if there are a few turkey movies in a franchise you enjoy? Like, I'm an old Star Trek fan from back in the day, like the original series Star Trek fan. I started watching Star Trek before anything else existed. I think all the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies are garbage. You can disagree with me if you want. That's fine. But I'm not going to get super mad at somebody who likes the new J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. I can go back and watch the original series with like George Takei and Leonard Nimoy and DeForest Kelley and James Doohan and William Shatner and be just fine. I still have that. Same way, I'll go back and watch Star Wars, like, to me, the real Star Wars, episodes 4, 5, and 6. But I'm old enough to remember when everybody was saying Return of the Jedi was a crap movie. People thought Empire, when it came out, initially ruined Star Wars. Like, there is... And the original Star Wars got terrible reviews. And... I mean, I remember watching the original Star Wars on one of those top-down VCRs. I think it was actually a Betamax machine. But, like, you put the thing on the top, but it went down, and it seemed kind of cool because it was like a Star Wars droid that you watched Star Wars on. It was so cool. But you actually had to rent them from the video store back in the day to watch movies because it wasn't common to have them in your house. They were so expensive. So you rented them, you took them home from the weekend, you watched 2 or 3 movies, and then you brought it back. That happened. in the days before streaming. But when the originals came out, I just walked out going, and I will say Revenge of the Sith is passable. There's interesting parts of it in Attack of the Clones. After I've gotten over my original, like, WTF was any of that, The Phantom Menace is still just a terrible movie. And the Anakin Padme scenes in Attack of the Clones are Mystery Science Theater 3000 worthy awful. They are bad. Like, just objectively bad. Now, of course, you know, the Darth Maul lightsaber battle is amazing. And some of the, like, spaceship chases in Attack of the Clones are amazing. And, like, some of the political intrigue, like the prequel political intrigue, is pretty interesting. And Ian McDiarmid is an incredible actor in every movie. But overall, the movies, on the whole, are lousy. I don't care. Like, I really don't care. Something's changed. And I think it's very important for us to understand what's changed. It's like people feel under siege on an identity level. And I got to give a shout out to Professor Chris Ferguson for making me aware, because he's a psychologist, and that's not my background. Identity's a real thing. I've never been terribly attached to any, like, physical identifiers. You know, race, gender, sexual orientation, everything like that. Like, to me, in my mind, I'm just a blob. Like, whatever. I grew up identifying with, like, Skeletor and Yoda and R2-D2. Like, who cares what my body is? I do not think that physical things should affect the way you think. Your experiences affect the way you think, and that is often impacted by how people judge you based on how you look. But that should not dictate your likes or your skills or your opinions. I'm not attached to my identity, but apparently some people very much are. And if you step on that identity, that has a profoundly traumatizing impact on them. And it seems like some of these properties, Harry Potter, Star Wars, I'm sure there are some others out there. I've got a friend who's super into Destiny, the game. Those become, because we're losing a lot of, like, our religious community and, you know, our neighborhoods, we're losing those other aspects of identity. Maybe these media properties are like your Hogwarts house is giving you something that, you know, your neighborhood or your religion or, you know, your ethnic background gave you before. I don't know. There's like this is an identity level. When people go crazy about this stuff, it is about identity. So I'm really, really curious. If you don't want me to read your comment on Feedback Friday, just say so right off the top. If you're okay with me reading your comment but not reading your screen name, say so right off the top. I won't. But I'm really, really curious about if you're willing to share what causes people to go so crazy one way or the other over Star Wars. Like, and about the character Rey specifically, because it's not just one way, right? It's not like the stereotype of angry internet guys being angry on the internet. Some women melted the fuck down over this idea that Rey was somehow abused. And I was seeing people, like, flip out on Twitter, like, traumatized for 3 days and crying because they thought there were signs of abuse with Rey. And it's like, to me, it's like, oh, they just copied everything that happened to Luke in Return of the Jedi. I didn't connect to it that way. I really find that these properties, for me, when I was, like, just becoming an adult, it was Batman the Animated Series. I realized that people who talked about Batman the Animated Series, and especially their favorite villain from Batman, Because Batman, like the Batman franchise was the height of its power at that point. The comics were amazing and the show was everywhere and the movies were like this big superhero thing. And you could learn a lot about who a person was by finding out who their favorite Batman villain was and whether they liked Robin or Nightwing better, or, that kind of stuff. You could learn a lot about a person if you were willing to listen. So I really want to know. Like, I'm serious. No troll here. I will be kind. I am not going to mock any comment here. Because, and I admit, this is tying into my video from Monday. That Terry Gilliam interview also went back to the thinking I've been doing about identity and realizing that I may have a huge blind spot here because identity is not super important to me. Like, I catch myself, even when I say gamer, I say them. When I talk about women, I say they. I don't know why I don't attach to anything, but I'm always talking about another person. I'm an INTJ. I just detach. I become just a brain, and I don't put myself in any of these groups. I'm an individual. That's all I care about. I don't like assuming things about people because of their identity. I'm also Slytherin house, and I forget what other thing. I don't know I have no idea what my Game of Thrones faction is. I was always like Cersei Lannister. I connect to her, and then my boss at the time said I actually reminded him more of Marjorie Tyrell, and I was like, I never thought of that. It's like, wow, internal image versus external image. That was before the thing in the church thing happened. So, it wasn't, that was around, I guess that happened season 5. We had that conversation, but it was interesting that, like, wow, my idea of how the world saw me and somebody else's an external idea of who the world saw me were very different. And that's a really interesting conversation. Because you can learn from those things if you don't, like, reject them outright. And I will admit, full disclosure, because it's relevant to the conversation, I do own a Leia's metal bikini. That was, like, awesome girl power feminism when I was younger. Now it's seen as a mark of the male gaze, and now it's considered a thing that people shouldn't do. And I'm just like, to me, she did an infiltration mission to save the man she loves. So reverse damsel in distress trope. She got captured, put in a slave outfit, and then chokes the fucker that did it with the chain that was around her neck. That was so second wave. That was so like an emancipation metaphor. And yeah, everybody knew it was partially George Lucas being a perv. Like, nobody questioned that for a second. But that was what made it so subversive. Like, George Lucas was Jabba, and I can just imagine Carrie Fisher in that moment going, fuck you, no bras in space, like, she meant it. And I guess women at the time didn't have a problem admitting that these things annoy us, but we still thought we could overcome them. Now it's like there's such a victim mentality that people don't even want to go there. I don't know. I'm guessing at this point. This is what I want to know. I want to learn. I'm in listening mode here. I am really curious about your comments. I will read some of them once I'm, I'll try to make short work of the Terry Gilliam thing, because this is all sort of going to ball together if this works properly. Otherwise, it's a hot fucking mess. But they demonetized the Terry Gilliam video anyway, so I have to be really careful because I can't take too many demonetizations at once, and this is the time where I should plug the Patreon again and shut the fuck up because it's almost a half hour. Okay, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, so I can talk about this stuff without worrying about monetization. Thanks for watching.